And of course, the right has taken it over and made it funny for ourselves. Also, the House actually agreed on something, except for one specific member. Well, it's funny, we'll talk about that. And another prominent lib is starting a podcast. What are they them going to talk about? All that and more coming up on this episode of Turning Point tonight. Thanks so much for tuning in. My name is JoBob, and together we are charting the course of America's cultural comeback. This is Turning Point tonight. As always, you can email the show, tpt@tpusa.com. You'll see that throughout the show. We love to read your emails, whether they're complimentary or you're wrong. If they're disgusting and vile, we will read them on the air if we get time to do so. But first, we have to talk about this hilarious, in my opinion, story about the CBP app. If you remember this, the Biden administration, in an attempt to, I guess, further the infiltration of the country with illegals, created an app, or at least revitalized an app for illegals to register and do all of the floofy stuff that didn't actually end up mattering during the Biden administration. Now, we've all used apps to order food, order a car, order, whatever it is that you want from Amazon. But now the CBP app, as taken over by the Trump administration, you can, through your phone, self-deport. Yes, the Trump administration has initiated a submit intent to depart the United States of America in an attempt to encourage illegals to, exit the country. Now, of course, you might be saying, and our panelists will probably also have some thoughts on this, well, why would anybody do that? Well, there's actually a pretty interesting incentive and disincentive structure. If you do actually self-deport and leave the country, you have the opportunity then to come in the correct way, as you're supposed to do. If you don't self-deport and the Trump administration catches you, the ability to re-enter the country is eliminated for life, in which case you can't come back in ever. So it is a really interesting incentive and disincentive structure and a hilarious repurposing of a Biden administration CBP app. Here to comment on that and more are our fantastic guests, Aaron Wexler, who is an online superstar, conservative commentator, and Chris Hand, host of the Chris Hand Show in the Nashville area, among other places. Guys, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So Aaron, I want to start with you. I know Chris has some thoughts because we've talked about this offline. Do we think that the illegals are going to actually utilize the app to self-deport? Or what do you think has got to be going through their heads considering this conundrum that they have now put themselves in?
Well, this is obviously brilliant, first of all, from the Trump admin's point of view. It's very Elon Doge-esque to be so efficient. Coming from the tech space, I have a tech background. It's very classic tech to say, let's take this product and just repurpose it. But in terms of, do I think if illegals are going to self-deport, I think we've already seen that they are. We've seen in New York City, a lot of them have cleared out. Here, I'm down in South Florida. It's actually a lot harder to get an Uber these days. My Uber drivers actually tend to speak English now. I think they really are self-deporting. I think they're afraid of Trump. They're afraid of Tom Homan. I don't know if they're afraid of Kristi Noem, but I know they know she's serious. I think they really will be self-deporting.
Yeah, interesting, because I'm not sure, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I don't know if Chris actually agrees. Chris, what do you think? Do you think people actually will self-deport? And I'd love to hear another side of the argument if you've got that. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
I mean, if I'm an illegal alien and I'm already here and I went to all this trouble, I'm probably not going to self-deport. I do think, though, that there is going to be a large portion of illegal aliens who are going to self-deport, who do want to live the American dream and don't want to have that taken away from them. It is hilarious that they repurpose this app, though. And I just, for me, my thought process goes to the guy who's on the other side of the border, who's been checking that app every day, waiting to sneak into our country, break into our country. And I wish I could have been a fly on the wall when he first opened that up and saw that everything has changed. Like, oh no, this isn't going to happen the way I thought it was. I do think people will self-deport. I don't know if it's going to be the numbers that we need, but I mean, you could talk to some prominent border reporters. The traffic is really in one way right now, and it's out of the country.
Yeah, I know this is all speculation. I kind of happen to think that more people might actually take advantage of this than we might think, just specifically because the punishment of never being able to immigrate here legally, it seems to be pretty dang severe. So again, I guess it remains to be seen, but overall hilarious move by the administration repurposing this app. I want to get to this. Speaking of the administration, when celebrities come out and endorse candidates. They talk about, we've taken a brave stance to protect democracy or whatever the buzzwords they've used. They're not really taking any risks because all of their friends in their social circles already always agree with them. Elon Musk, on the other hand, took a massive financial risk in supporting President Trump and unfortunately is feeling some of the repercussions of that. Tesla stock is down 45% since the inauguration. People on the left has said, well, driving a Tesla is basically just wearing a big MAGA hat out in public. Overall, political maneuvering happens. Personally, I think, there's a possibility that, well, Tesla products are just better and this is just kind of a blip. But I'm curious, Aaron, what do you think is going on here? Do you think Tesla rebounds because of how good their product is? Do you think, considering the fact that Tesla used to be the toast of libs who used to love EVs, what is going on here?
Yeah, so there are a few things. First, I would never bet against Elon Musk. I think that's a generally good rule of thumb. And we've seen similar to Trump, that character arc, right, where the left for so long made fun of him. I remember, again, because I come from this tech background, I remember people making fun of his ambition and his goals and saying that none of this would ever succeed. And now we're watching as he's restructuring the government while simultaneously you could be on a flight, as I was, and see SpaceX rockets in the air. And it's pretty unbelievable. What I think in terms of the stock, though, is if you're looking at the macro picture, stocks are down across the board, tech is down across the board. And so I do think it's kind of this glitzy headline of, wow, Tesla's down. And of course, we're seeing these attacks. It's absolutely deranged how the left is trying to burn Teslas. I saw overnight there were dozens of cars in a parking lot in Texas where the tires were just stolen off these cars, just as a big, clearly, middle finger to anyone with a Tesla, to Elon Musk. But, I think it's just really part of this macro trend where it's not fun, but what Trump and Elon are doing is dealing with the legacy of the left, which is very bad economic policy, a lot of printing money. And so we're going to have to see some adjustment to that.
Yeah, Chris, we were looking at some video of some what looked like fire bombings of Tesla Cybertrucks, I think in the Seattle area. The libs have taken to protesting at Tesla showrooms and making a big show of it. I mean, I think I know the answer to this, but how much more does this make you want to buy a Tesla?
I want to buy a Tesla. I mean, for the self-driving alone, I can get some work done on my commute in Nashville. But it just shows that Elon is doing this for the right reasons. I mean, we say this about Trump all the time. He doesn't need to do this. He's got all the money in the world. Well, multiply that by 10, and then you have Elon's money and Elon's value. Elon doesn't need to be here. He doesn't need to worry about this. He would still be a darling of the left if he wasn't doing any of this. And in the meantime, you're seeing deranged leftists do deranged leftist things. I saw one guy, this story was in Portland. He had a swastika scratched into the hood of his Tesla. And this guy was a lefty himself. He said, guys, I could have used the money to fix this and donated it to the DNC. Even after all this, a lot of these leftists still won't learn. It's embarrassing.
Yeah, the economics of it is fascinating, especially considering how much they just love Tesla. Also, Tesla being the only electric car maker that made any sort of dent. And I think we all remember Biden never mentioning Tesla when he was talking about the auto industry. Speaking of economics, I thought this was hilarious. Obviously, of course, this goes without saying, we are all massive WNBA fans. I personally never miss a game. Chris, I know you have floor seats to every WNBA game. That is, in fact, if Nashville even has a team. I don't actually know that for a fact, even as a massive WNBA fan myself. I want to play you this clip of Angela Reese, one of the dominant WNBA players, talking about the pay that the WNBA players receive and what she may do and her fellow teammates may do if the pay does not increase. Let's watch this and we'll get your reactions.
Girl, y'all benefited from everything. Y'all youngins benefited from NIL.
What does that mean? We deserve more.
Of course,
everybody.
I agree.
Everybody.
I agree with that.
But we got to get paid some consequences. Damn, we got to get it up.
Y'all got to do something. Y'all got to do something. I've been in the meetings. They are.
I need to get in the. I need to get in the field.
You need to come to the meetings.
I got to get in the meetings because I'm hearing they don't give us. If y'all don't give us what we want, we sit out.
That's a possibility for real.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting there. Just for some statistical reference, The WNBA has been around since 1996. It is yet to turn a profit. It has lost about $10 million per year. And 2024 reports from the Washington Post and the New York Post projected losses ranging between $40 and $50 million per year. Now, they say they want what the NBA wants, which is a revenue share. If they were to share the cost of losing $50 million a year, that would mean that every WNBA player would need to pay $173,000 in order to play. That's not making any money. That's out of their own pocket. Aaron, what are your thoughts overall with the misunderstanding of how supply and demand works?
I'm so glad you asked, because really what it boils down to is that the WNBA is welfare for tall women in America, right? If we were following basic economic principles, like you said, these women would owe us money for being forced to even talk. I want money for having to talk about this on this program, okay? And this is so boring. They are so bad. And you know what? If she's threatening to not play until she gets paid more, don't threaten me with a good time. Go ahead, be my guest. Don't play. And let's just, I would contribute money. I've never been to a WNBA game. I would pay the ticket cost for them to not play. That's how far I'll go. Okay. That's how much I hate the WNBA.
Maybe that would be a hilarious, I don't know if you would call it a protest, but like a stunt, a publicity stunt in a way, to have the entire arena be sold out specifically to not watch them play basketball.
Please do not diminish my cause, which is to stop the terrors that is the WNBA, so we can all move on with our lives.
Chris, you are obviously, gonna fully disagree, as you are a diehard whatever WNBA team is in Nashville, I think. But do you think there's going to be any sort of, I don't know, lesson of economics that is going to be taught to these women who are apparently wanting the big money, the big bucks that the league that actually has viewers gets? Like, will they learn at any point?
Well, if they actually sit out, I mean, they're going to learn a few things the hard way. That's for sure. Who is going to come back to the NBA after the WNBA after they've turned their back on their fan? I don't know who would return to that. But the thing that the WNBA has is an issue in making stars. They had a star ready to go, Caitlin Clark, and then they doubled down on wokeism. They doubled down on the ideology, and then she's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry for being white." The WNBA has a really big issue. It really does start and end with the players, though.
Yeah, I've never seen a league, or even group of people for that matter, be so hostile toward their own success as they finally got one player that everybody's watching and they're like, "Oh, we hate this." Aaron and Chris, thanks so much. The panel will be back right after the break. And also, we will check in with Turning Point's White House correspondent Monica Page on what's going on in the Oval Office and beyond. Don't go away. We'll be right back after this.
Independence. With that declaration, America was born.
Welcome back to Turning Point tonight, where we are charting the course of America's cultural comeback. My name is JoBob, and I'm so glad you stuck with us through the break. We also, don't forget, you can email the show anytime you want at tpt@tpusa.com. We love to read everything you have to say, if you agree with us or you're wrong. But it's time for our favorite part of the day, when we check in with Turning Point's White House correspondent Monica Page, where there's some really interesting news coming out of the Oval Office. You want to tell us about this whole Ukraine thing that's happening now in real time?
Yeah, JoBob, great to be with you as always. Well, it appears that there could be a 30-day ceasefire deal that has officially been brokered between Ukraine and Russia. Now, the ball is in Russia's court, but essentially, Secretary of State Marco Rubio is overseas with Mike Waltz in Saudi Arabia, brokering this deal between Ukraine and Russia, where apparently, originally, we had cut off or paused all kinds of intel and military assistance to Ukraine because it was clear that Ukraine, back here at the White House, didn't seem to really want peace, didn't seem to really want to forge the way for peace. But now things have changed after these meetings that have happened overseas, where it appears now that Ukraine is ready for peace. So now there will be a 30-day ceasefire in which we will be providing some more intel assistance and military assistance to Ukraine if peace is really on the table. If Ukraine says they want peace this much, then let's put this to the test and let's see by giving Ukraine and allowing the intel and military assistance to be happening here once again. So very interesting stuff. We'll see if Russia will agree to this deal or not. But essentially, that's what's coming out of the White House right now. So we'll see if Ukraine really wants peace or not. We'll see if Russia really wants to end this war as well. And that's the latest coming out of the White House today.
Yeah, I was going to ask, it's obviously contingent on what Russia says as well. Considering all the pushback that President Trump got with his Oval Office meeting with Zelensky, what was that, 2 weeks ago now almost? I guess how is this news being received by your counterparts in the White House press cohort?
Well, the White House press seem to kind of be taken aback. They seem to be taken by surprise by this latest news. I mean, to hear some of the reporters in the press briefing this afternoon, they seem to, I feel like they're a little bit in shock by the fact that President Trump could do this. But this is something that President Trump has been clear about on day one, that he could end this war if he really wanted to within 48 hours. And we're seeing that less than 3 months into this presidency, that he's already taking those necessary steps to end this war. I mean, granted, it hasn't been 48 hours, but it's still massive progress, considering this war has been happening for well over 2 years now. It happened under the Biden administration, and President Trump has been clear. So I think a lot of the reporters here are a little bit surprised that President Trump could really pull this off. But at the end of the day, here at the White House, I'm personally not surprised. I knew this is what President Trump wanted. I know this is what Ukraine wants, especially. There's been killings on both Ukraine and Russia side, of course, and President Trump has wanted to put a stop to this.
Yeah, well, it sounds like, hey, maybe hold your horses, big time media, and let's just see how things play out. It may actually work out in everyone's favor. Monica, I only got like 20 seconds on this, but President Trump came out and said, hey, he's going to buy a Tesla to support all of the protests going on against Elon by the deranged lunatics. Do you think that you might get that Tesla and be the recipient of President Trump's purchase?
I wish and I hope, especially if he buys a Cybertruck, because I am probably the world's biggest Cybertruck fan. If you follow me on social media, you probably know that. I think it's pretty funny. But President Trump did check out a range of Teslas, of course, the Model S, the Model 3, the Model X, the Model Y, all spelling out sexy, which I think is also pretty funny that Elon Musk did that. But he did go with a bright red Model S. He sat in the driver's seat and he checked out the dashboard and he was like, it's like the whole thing's a computer. He was pretty shocked and taken aback by the really cool technology that Tesla has. Elon Musk and, of course, Little X was accompanying him on the South Lawn this afternoon while President Trump was showing his support for Tesla. So all positive news here from the White House, and we'll see how the next couple of days turns out for the rest of the week.
So what I heard was unconfirmed that Monica Page will actually get the Tesla. Thanks, Monica.
Confirmed.
Hey, really appreciate
Confirmed about those unconfirmed reports.
Really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us.
Anytime. Thanks, JoBob.
Thank you. Monica Page, Turning Point's White House correspondent, always a pleasure. You know, there's been a whole thing. The left can't meme. Conservatives have dominated the meme wars. We have a general in the meme wars as the president's son, Donald J. Trump Jr. Actually, I don't know if his middle name is Jay. Regardless, the left can't meme has been a thing ever since memes were invented. And now, finally, it appears that the left has started this kind of funny meme, right? They've struck something that actually is funny and entertaining and engaging, and it's memes about JD Vance. Now, the good news is we have now adopted that into our own meme culture and made it even better. Let's bring our panel back, Aaron Wexler and Chris Hand, to chat about this. I think, first of all, if this is a TV audience, it may be that they haven't seen everything that's going on the X space, all of the social media platforms. But this has been a massive thing. JD Vance is now everywhere doing everything as his face is being replaced in pretty much every famous photo ever created. You'll see some of those photos in the B-roll while our guests are speaking. But Aaron, I want to get your take on this. What I guess, what does it mean now that the left has finally found something funny that we've kind of co-opted and made our own? I guess, what is this saying?
Well, this was what keeps happening with the left. So they actually tried first to paint us as villains this election cycle. And I recently wrote about this in Human Events, not to plug that, but it is an article where I am talking about how the left, in painting us one way that we actually embrace, they don't know what to do with it. And so people, in being the villain and looking good that way and like dark MAGA, people became attracted to us. And the same thing is happening here now with this joke. The left they weren't even trying to be funny. That's what makes it so funny. They were trying to be hateful and hurtful. And instead, JD Vance is tweeting out these memes of himself. And I think that's the sign of true humor, when you're able to laugh at yourself. If you're not able to laugh at yourself, you're not actually funny. And the left is so unfunny right now. They're so unable to self-reflect and even laugh at themselves. And they don't know what to do when we take a meme like this and just absolutely embrace it. And that's, again, what we're doing on the right with all these things that they keep trying to throw at us.
It reminds me of there's several either memes or reels of pro-abortionists saying, well, if women don't have control over their body, then the men should be forced to stay. And we're like, well, us, the pro-life conservatives, agree with this message. Thank you for making our point for us. Chris, is this an instance where the left is going to recognize, hey, you making fun of us is not actually getting the point across that you think it is, or are they going to continue to go down the dismal hellhole of unfunny internet memes?
I feel like you're putting a lot on the left, asking for them to have self-awareness, just for starters.
True.
But that'll never happen. But to piggyback on what Aaron said, it's so true. They tried to make something hateful. They tried to make something to bash JD Vance, and everybody went, that's hilarious. Let's use that. And then they put rocket boosters on it, and it turned into what we saw today. That's my favorite. Vance as Mr. Rogers. What one was your favorite? There are so many to choose from, because the right now is the creative space. It is where the new ideas are coming from, and you can see it just with the creativity in the memes.
Yeah. Speaking of big time libs and creativity, another big time lib has launched into this podcast space. We all, I think, watched Charlie Kirk's podcast with Gavin Newsom, in which Gavin apparently agrees with everything that Charlie said, which I thought was fascinating. But in that podcast space, there's a new lib trying to take hold. And in that lib is Michelle Obama, who announced a podcast that she's going to be doing with her brother, Craig Robinson, called IMO, which some people say stands for, in my opinion, I thought it was Insightful Male Oprah. I'm not entirely sure what it is. But Aaron, do you think this sort of format is actually going to work for libs? They've been saying for a long time, we need a Joe Rogan. We need a Theo Vaughn. Is this the answer? Is Michelle Obama going to be the answer?
Well, Michelle Obama is obviously highly popular on the left. I was very afraid when we knew that Joe Biden was going to be dropping out of the race. I was deeply, deeply afraid Michelle would run to take his place. And I was just relieved to know that she enjoyed her life too much and the celebrity and really did not want to run for president. That's what saved us, because I think she really had a good chance of winning. But regardless to say, we are cursed these days with a Meghan Markle show, and now it seems a Michelle Obama podcast. And I actually think, I look at this less as maybe she's trying to be Joe Rogan and more of are she and Barack soft launching a divorce? And is that what this is? And this is Michelle kind of stepping out on her own and bringing her brother into it. And that would be just huge. I don't think we've ever seen a presidential divorce, right, as a nation. So we'll wait and see. But I think that's really what's going on here.
Yeah. Chris, I'm curious. Do you think she's kind of seeing what's out there in regards to running in 2028 as the Democratic nomination. Aaron, I think, is absolutely right. I think a lot of people were really nervous that she was going to backfill Joe Biden when he dropped out. Do you think this is setting her up to potentially be the DNC nominee?
I mean, I could see why you would think that, especially after the Gavin Newsom podcast, because everybody says, well, he's running in 2028. I think if she had wanted to do that, she would have struck a lot sooner while the iron was hot. I don't think that she's going to have the momentum if she was to run in 2028 that she could have had replacing Joe Biden. So that doesn't really make me nervous at all. I know it makes some conservatives nervous. I totally get it, but I don't see it. For me, I just think Michelle Obama really likes Michelle Obama, and she really likes being famous a lot more than she likes spending time in D.C. And I think that she saw the attention that Gavin Newsom was getting or was about to get and saw an opening for herself. And she also has this big production company, and they got to spend some of that money. So why not a Michelle Obama podcast?
Yeah, just to clear the air here and make sure I don't get myself in trouble. That was a joke, what I said earlier. If you remember it, great. If you don't remember it, that's fine too. But definitely a joke, kind of. Let's see. In the 30 seconds we've got left, the House actually agreed on something and voted 402-1, including yes votes from AOC and Ilhan Omar, that the Border Patrol needs to submit a report about the tunnels that the cartel is creating. The only dissent was from Rashida Tlaib. Chris, you had some comments earlier. I'd love for you to share that. Why you think Rashida Tlaib was the only nay vote on the cartels?
Well, the only thing I could think of is that she's so used to supporting terrorists that now that cartels are terrorist organizations, she saw this bill that was anti-terrorist and thought, no, I need to go the other way on this. It's the only thing that can make any sense to me, Rashida Tlaib. She's usually in support of terrorists, and now she's just doing terrorists in Mexico as well. Why would anybody vote against this? It makes no sense.
That is an interesting take. Aaron, do you have any final thoughts as we wrap up? We've got about 30 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of her family's culture, tunnels, right? So I guess it's just par for the course.
Okay, great. Aaron Wexler, Chris Hand, our awesome panel for today. Really appreciate you guys coming in. We'll have you back soon. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Awesome. Coming up, we've got a fantastic clip from Alex Clark's Culture Apothecary podcast. Coming up next, don't go away. We'll be right back.
What were your feelings towards going to the ocean after this?
Absolutely terrified. Heck no. No, thank you. Like, do not get me anywhere close to the ocean.
Were you swimming, like even in a pool, or you were away from water, no baths? Like, what were you, really going through?
Baths, I remember having, like, sometimes I'd get flashbacks. But like, it was the ocean. I feel like I could did the difference. I could understand the difference between like salty water and regular water. And it was like the ocean. I was like, no, I don't want to be near it.
And your parents had a very interesting way of getting you to deal with that. What did they tell you that you were going to be doing?
So they're like whatever, 6 months or a year later, they're like, sit us down. And they're like, girls, we have enrolled you in beach lifeguard training. And I was like, what?
After surviving a tsunami, your parents need to write a parenting book. They have the most interesting parenting approaches I've ever heard, but in a great way. This is phenomenal. Like, I don't think any modern parents would think to do this. So they say you're going to be doing, what is it called?
Beach lifeguard training. So you're literally going to be training during summer to be a lifeguard on the beach.
And save people from drowning.
And swim in the ocean.
How did that go?
Well, I had a lot of anger I had to work through. But I think my parents, honestly, they really crushed it as parents, and they were really good at teaching us, like, honestly, like obedience, like just trust.
Wow.
Which is really, because they see like the goal as parents to teach your children obedience, because if they're obedient to your earthly parents, they're going to be obedient to their heavenly Father. And like, God's love language is obedience. And so I just remember being like angry, and I was able to express it, but I was still like, I just had so much trust. My parents at this point had been good parents. And so even though I didn't understand it and I expressed my lack of understanding, I trusted them. And so, months go by and I'm terrified. I'm like, geez, I know that day's coming. I'm like, this is the day. I'm like, I don't want to do this. So that day shows up, and it's the first day of training. I wake up. I had a horrible nightmare. I had a nightmare that the tsunami had swallowed me. And my hair is a complete mess. I'm like nervous peeing like 10 times. And I'm looking in the mirror, and my dad, he sees me, and he just can tell what's going on. And he comes up to me, gets down on his knees. He looks me in the eye, and he goes, Riley, you are fighting a battle between courage and fear. And all you need is a little more courage. And those few words, a little more courage, like, has become my motto in life. Because everyone listening to this right now, you're fighting a battle between courage and fear. It's an everyday thing. It might be like social anxiety, or it might be like wanting to enroll in that job, or like, it's just so many things. But we are fighting a battle, and like, fear does not stop like death. It stops life. And my parents wanted me to live a life with life. And so my dad like has this saying in me, and it did something to my heart in that moment. And even though I was so scared, we get in the car, we drive down, and we go to beach lifeguard training. We had bought a beach house like on the very, very top of a hill, which I'm like, that was definitely decision motivated after the tsunami. And it was like on the top of the hill, and we go back down, we show up, and I remember walking around and being like, how is everyone so happy right now? Like, kids were so excited. And then this little girl named Rosie comes up to me, and she's like, hi. And she's like, start chatting to me, and she's like, it's okay if you're quiet, you can just stand by me. Like, she just took care of me the whole summer, because there were times when I would just like walk into the ocean and just like turn around and just not want to touch the water.
She was like your little guardian angel.
No, I know. And she'd be like, it's okay. And so there's one moment we like swim out, and it was like stormy day, and the waves were really big. So I got scared, and I swam back in, and I sat on the shore. And she comes up to me, and she tells me, and she's like, we're 11. And she goes, Riley, like, do you want to know a secret? And I was like, yeah, what? And she's like, when I get scared of something, I always want to close my eyes. I open my eyes, and I try and find the beauty. And so that was like my little thing.
What in the world is your life, girl? This is just, it's crazier and crazier. It's so precious.
Isn't it?
Wow.
Yes. It's what happens when you give God the pen.
I love that. Give God the pen. I love that. as you grew up,
Yes.
what did you feel like God was calling you to do with your life?
He was calling me to like live a life of courage. And he was calling me to help others live that life too. I mean, just having done like experienced the beach lifeguard training, and then I ended up becoming a beach lifeguard and lifeguarded for summers and summers and years and years and years. And there was this one story that I would love to share with you. So it's Valentine's Day, which is so sweet because I'm pregnant and my baby's due date is Valentine's Day.
Oh my gosh.
And I feel like God does something special on Valentine's Day. And so this is years after that I had been now a lifeguard for years, and I'm at my beach house and it's a stormy day. I'd gone there to study because I'm a super people person, and if I'm around people, I like get no study done. So I'd taken myself out like to our beach house in this quiet, tiny little beach town, and I decided, even though it was stormy, to go for a swim. And when I'm out there swimming, and nobody else is on this beach, when I'm out there swimming, I noticed that like there's huge rip tides, and it was like I was freaking out a little bit from being out there swimming. Huge rip tides, massive waves, and I'm like, this is dangerous. What am I doing right now? So I come back in and I sit on the beach, and for some reason I just felt this like inclination to wait a little bit. And then all of a sudden I hear this man yelling, "Help, help." And I look out to him, and he's pointing out at a man that's way out past the waves that's drowning. And instincts kick in and my years of training kick in, but then I start running to go and like attempt to help this man, and knowing that I'd just been in the water and I barely went out deep and it was already really dangerous, and this man is so far out there, he's way past these massive waves. And I had this moment where I stop right before the water, and I was like, what am I doing? Should I do this? And all the things of like the instincts of training, and then the instincts that my parents had put in me of like having the courage to care. And I just stood there and I counted to 3, and I was like, at the point that I say 3, I'm going in this water, because fear was like coming back up in me. And it was like this stormy day, and it was just like, I was just feeling so much. And like, sometimes I get flashbacks, and I was getting a flashback of the tsunami and thinking, what if I die? Like, all these things were going through my head. And so I counted to 3 and I stepped into the water. I start running out to this man, and then I'm swimming out to him. And thankfully that day I had brought with me like flippers, like fins. And so I put them on, and they're just like so helpful to get me there to reach this man quicker. And when I'm about like 50 meters from him, I realized he put his head. They do this thing when you're drowning. It's called like climbing the ladder, where you're like moving your hands up and down, like you're climbing a ladder. And he had stopped doing that, and his head was now on the ground, in the water, I mean. And as I'm getting closer and closer, his body starts drifting underneath the water to the bottom. And I dive down and I grab him and I pull him up on my chest, and I'm yelling at him, no response. And I'm checking his pulse, and I can't find a pulse. He had drowned. And so I had this moment where I count to 3 again, and I'm like, I will not give up on you. You are not done. And so I grabbed this man, even though he was a large man, and I pull him on top of me and start CPR on his chest.
In the water?
In the water.
How do you do that?
You like pull the person on top of you, and you're behind them, pumping into their chest, and then you pull them over, and then you blow into their mouth. And my fins are like working. Like, I was like grateful I had fins, so it was like a little bit easier for me to stay above water. Yeah, very deep water. And he all of a sudden throws up and literally comes back to life. This man. And so I grab him and I start pulling him back, but then these waves are coming in. At one point I lose him, and I have to like dive under and grab him. I'm like, you are staying with me. You're surviving. And I pull this man, and he was a German tourist swimming in jeans in the ocean, and pull him onto the shore. And another crazy coincidence happened. Another small miracle is this is a small beach town on a stormy day. It happened that the local doctor also wanted to go for a walk at this time.
Oh my gosh.
He had seen this whole thing happen and thought to himself, dear God, there's going to be 2 deaths today. Called the ambulance and said, prepare for 2 bodies, because he saw me running out to rescue this man and saw that man thinking we're both going to die. So the ambulance is already on its way. He comes over to us, because I'm trained on how to like rescue this man out of the water, but I'm not trained on like how to take care of his body after having just like been like his heart stopped and then it came back. Like, I don't know what to do. So this man takes over and he like helps this man recover. The ambulance shows up like a minute later, and I walk away from this, and the man that had rescued, as he's being put in the ambulance, just turns to me and says, "Thank you." And as I'm walking away, walking back to my beach house, like to go back, I was studying law at this point. I'm like, to go back to my law studies. I just remember thinking, I did it. The place that was once a place of death is now a place of victory. And I want to teach everyone to turn their place that reminds them of death and destruction, the place that they're terrified of, the person, the opportunity that they're terrified of. I want them to turn that into a place of victory. And to use like just something as simple as 3 seconds of courage. Like it takes 3 seconds of courage to call somebody, to say yes, to say, please forgive me. All these like tiny micro moments of courage, just 3 seconds. And our whole lives can be radically changed.
Welcome back to Turning Point Tonight, where we are charting the course of America's cultural comeback. My name is JoBob, and we are so glad to have you. As always, you can email the show at tpt@tpusa.com. Email us your thoughts, what we should be talking about, whether or not you agree with us or you're wrong. Whatever you want to email, send an email to tpt@tpusa.com. It is Tuesday, so it is time to take a look at TikTok on TikTok Tuesday. First video comes, I thought this was actually fascinating to watch and listen to, so well, let's just play it and we will discuss what this young man has to say about a state we all know and love.
I am clearly a flaming homosexual. And I am in the deep red state of Texas. When I tell you I'm in the country, everywhere you go, there's a Trump sign. And when I tell you, every person that I've met has been the nicest person I have come across in years. And there's this narrative that big city liberals spread about country people, that they're all and racist. And it's the furthest thing from the truth. If you're somebody who looks down on country people or people who live in the country, you look at them with moral superiority, like you are smarter than them, or you're more intellectual, I challenge you to come out here and spend a few days here. These people are not what they're made out to be.
I guess I've heard all of that, you know, being in big cities a lot, New York, LA specifically. Yeah, you do hear that all the time. Like, oh, those people in the country. No, everybody's super nice. Have you ever gone to any part of the country that isn't your big urban population centers? Everywhere is nice. It's funny because the big urban population centers are like, we need more of this and that. And then everybody's mad and angry all the time. And you go to, you know, like rural Texas or rural Oklahoma, and, you know, there's less stuff. There's no subways. There's no public transportation, but also everybody's happier. So, you know, maybe some days the libs will learn. Let's get on to the next one. Watch this. Sterilized because we all couldn't act right in voting. All right, now that's just sad. If you're just listening to this on the podcast, it was a video that some girl made celebrating getting sterilized because Trump got elected. You know, you can make fun of that. You can be all up in arms about it. It's just sad at this point. I'm at a point in my life where people doing things out of spite for something that really shouldn't impact their life at all. It is just sad. You're not going to have a happy and fulfilling life, probably. I would hope so, but it is not going in the correct direction. Let's squeeze this last one in right under the time frame. Watch this.
You don't have a uterus, you don't get to make a decision.
Did you just tell me I don't have a uterus?
It will never happen to you. It will never happen to you. Are you telling me that you have a uterus?
Well, you couldn't tell me I don't if I claimed it. My pronouns are uterus owner male.
I'm still waiting, and I think all of us are still waiting for the day that won't be funny. But the day has not yet come, because the whole idea, I'm this, you can't tell me I'm not, it's still funny. Anyway, that's going to do it for us here at Turning Point tonight. Charlie is going to take us out. Really appreciate you sticking around and tuning in. We will see you tomorrow, same time, same place. God bless America.
The left is waking up. Since the inauguration, even since Election Day, we said, where is the la resistance? Where is it? It's not in the streets. It's not protesting. And for a period of time, that was absolutely true. During the inauguration, it was not to be found in the streets. There was no women's march. The left is starting to wake up. They are getting out of their slumber. And I'm not saying this to try to depress you. I'm not telling you this to say that everything is coming to an end. Exactly the opposite, actually. I'm telling you that, of course, there is half the country that opposes what we're doing. Of course, there is a significant portion of America that wants to see the federal government keep on sending out erroneous checks. The left has been poking around and looking for a spark. This last weekend, Elizabeth Warren drew 2,000 to 3,000 people in Texas. I mean, that's not a game changer crowd, but it's something. Bernie Sanders drew a similar crowd in Wisconsin. Speaking of which, Donald Trump Jr. and I will be in Oconomowoc, say that 3 times fast, on Monday, which is a suburb of Milwaukee. We'll be having a great town hall. These are just some data points that I want you to process. It's very tempting to believe that just because the left has been asleep the last couple of months since we knocked them out in November, that they are going to stay asleep. Bernie Sanders is probably taking the most potent line of criticism, saying that we must fight the oligarchy. Now, of course, the oligarchy that is actually running the country is an unelected deep state bureaucracy sympathetic to the aims, wants, and ambitions of growing the size and scope of government, not the idea of people like Elon Musk. But for someone that doesn't quite understand what is happening in D.C. right now, the bipartisan bureaucratic regime that has existed for the last 100 years called the administrative state, it sounds and feels good. So the left is starting to awaken from their slumber. Is it going to ramp up even further? Possibly. And that's why everyone in this audience, it's time to continue to stay engaged, to keep the pressure on the Democrats for why they are not supporting President Trump's agenda, to stay involved in your local county committees, to stay involved in your local Republican Party. Some of you might be saying, but Charlie, we just had an election. I'm exhausted. Look, our offseason in politics is like the hockey offseason. It's like 90 days. It's like the baseball offseason. It's like maybe 100 to 120 days. And we have not even rested. We did not take any time off. Neutral gear is the kiss of death in politics, acting as if you are in the happy, agreeable middle. Instead, if you are not on offense, you are on defense. And if you're not first, you're last, to quote a great scholar from Talladega. The energy of the left is going from one issue to the other. They're still trying to figure out the best one to completely resist us on. You had Al Green shout out at the speech last week. And the Democrats did us a great gift, by the way. They did a great gift last week when they were not applauding the kid with brain cancer. That had real rank and file impact. But the base of the Democrat Party, and the Democrats are trying to build a base first strategy, as you would expect them. The base of the Democrat Party is getting animated and fired up. Yesterday, there was a phenomenal announcement from President Trump and Marco Rubio. Now, President Trump and Marco Rubio's strategy is they want to first find a singular person to deport and make the case around this person that is on a student visa, supported Hamas, and should be deported back to their country of origin. So you're going to now know the name Mahmoud Khalil. The left is trying to wake up their rank and file troops around this individual. The Trump administration has been trying to deport him. A federal judge just blocked that. Again, the idea of these judges coming in and blocking the action of the executive branch, it is an intentional run out the clock strategy. Let me be very clear. The Democrats are trying to use district court and circuit court judges to block President Trump's administration to run out the clock. So major protests are now breaking out all over New York City in support of Mahmoud Khalil. They're trying to turn him into a martyr. Well, President Trump ran on a promise to fight against the pro-terrorist, anti-Jewish radicalism that has been flourishing on college campuses. One of the ways he vowed to do that is by kicking out agitators coming here from abroad to study on our campuses. American citizens have strong freedom of speech, but there is zero reason that America should be welcoming foreigners from abroad whose chief occupation will be to agitating on behalf of American enemies who murder women and children as their primary strategy. And that is exactly what Mahmoud Khalil did. Now, he's not some kid. He's not 18 or 19 years old. He's a 30-year-old. He's 29 or 30 years old. A former Columbia University graduate student. In the words of the New York Times, Khalil was, quote, the public face of protest against Israel. He wasn't just some guy that showed up at a rally. He was the public front-facing face of what happened at Columbia University. What Khalil did went far beyond attending marches or writing op-eds. Just this past January, Khalil was in a group that disrupted a Columbia class on Israeli history to attack the country. And the professor for, quote, normalizing genocide. Khalil collaborated with students who started a tent city on Columbia's campus who illegally took over